Projects which aim to uplift the standards of living for local communities will drive the development agenda of a country and contribute significantly to the achievement of the UN Millennium Development Goals. Welcome to It's Africa's Time. In episode 6, we introduce the Royal Bafokeng Nation, a community within South Africa which drives education as a pillar of its economic sustainability. We also return to Ghana to visit the partnership interventions of Yara and Citi Group and to document how these rural electrification and agricultural development initiatives are contributing to the long-term socio-economic growth of the country. But first, we meet with Ruby Sandu Rajan of the UNDP to discuss development on the African continent.
The Millennium Development Goals are probably the most powerful goals that the whole world has actually signed on to. They won't be achieved by any single organization or government or group or civil society. They're really goals that we all have to work at. And what's important for business to understand is that in order to achieve these goals, there is a very strong role for business, because business, private sector, is the engine for economic growth. In order to achieve also some of the goals, you need to look at issues such as energy. You need to look at issues such as infrastructure. So we won't be able to achieve those unless we also include private sector, we include businesses with us to looking to see how we can have much more sustainable ways of achieving these goals. The United Nations has in its Millennium Declaration and along with its Global Compact looked at business practices and tried to align them with universal practices such as the Universal Human Declaration, which looks at human rights, it looks at environmental law, it looks at labor practices. So I think what we need to do is to work with the government as well as with United Nations agencies to see how we can make business practices much more aligned to some of the universal principles. UNDP really has several roles. The first is actually creating the partnership, and in doing so creating awareness on the Millennium Development Goals and the role that businesses can play, but also a brokering and a facilitating role. What are the triple wins? You know, you're looking at environment, you're looking at social, and you're looking also at economic. You want equitable economic growth, which is sustainable, but also which is not harmful to the environment. So I think what we need to do is find business practices and models which really integrate that.
First, we travel to Bolgatanga in the Upper East region of Ghana to learn about Citi's financial support for the government's rural electrification projects and to see how this intervention is improving standards of living and enabled business development in the area.
Welding, there's nothing you can do without electricity. Everything goes with electricity. So if there's no electricity, we cannot do anything.
There is a direct correlation between energy consumption and then GDP growth. And if you recall, Ghana is doing something close to 13–14%. We have to match the demand, and we've realized that power requirements is a constraint to economic development.
The National Electrification Scheme was set up in 1989, with implementation planned over 30 years. Its objective was to connect all communities with populations over 500 to the national grid. Following pressure from some of the regional districts, government then instituted the Self Help Electrification Project, allowing communities to play a role in accelerating this process. Citi Group has financed the fourth phase of the project by means of a long-term, low-interest loan.
I've been in electrical construction for nearly 25 years, but with the SHEP, we've been with it for about 15 good years. And we've done a lot of projects in rural communities all around town, and you could see that it's helped a lot of people, especially the rural communities that were not enjoying electricity. Now they have lights, they have water, and they have good health when you have all these three amenities around. And it's going to open up more businesses and more industries, which is going to have a serious impact in the lives of people.
Right now, I have only about 3 or 4 boys here. So I'm thinking if God bless, one day, I want it to be more than what is happening here. And I'll train more boys. With electricity, they can also open their own shops and then also grow up.
The project SHEP IV is the supply and installation of electricity to 457 communities in the Upper East region of Ghana, and that equates to roughly 60,000 households. Tenga SHEP have a contract with the Ministry of Energy to do the supply and installation of the relevant equipment. And Citi's involvement is they providing the loan funding to the government of Ghana, represented by the Minister of Finance. The unique part of this transaction is the way that Citi have managed to structure the finance for the deal. It's a combination of a moratorium on the capital repayments combined with a 15-year tenure. And in addition to that, it complies with all the requirements laid down by the IMF in terms of concessional loans. And Citi have been very innovative in structuring this deal.
Citi is a commercial bank, and borrowing from the bank would have meant borrowing on commercial terms. But with the credit agency, we're able to borrow at a much longer tenor, sometimes also with the reduced rate of interest.
But the idea was, at the beginning, was that by 2020, we should get at least 80% of our population on the national grid. We have achieved it ahead of time, and we believe that by 2020, we may almost get universal access.
General distribution agreements are set up between the Ministry of Energy and the Volta River Authority, establishing how the electricity generated via the Volta Hydroelectric Scheme is transmitted to the various regions. The contractor, Tenga SHEP, then taps the power off the VRA grid and designs the procurement, logistics and installation of the equipment required. The communities who are represented by the district assemblies also contribute labour and basic equipment to the process.
Electricity is a very delicate and very skilled labour. So immediately the project is over. The project is handed over to the VRA. VRA will then engage community people, train them. When they are satisfied that they are able to discharge the duties of some kind of consummate precision, then you allow them to go.
And to be able to qualify to be under this self-help, you have to contribute some part of the capital investment. You have to be within 20 kilometers of a suitable medium voltage source. You have to contribute your LV post. You have to get a technical team to do your layouts for you. And the community should be willing that at the time that we are there, they wire at least 30% of the potential customers. And all that you have to do is to pay 58 pesos, which I think it's 25 cents to get registered and get connected on.
We have an agreement with the Ministry of Energy that at least 30% of the project value has to come from Ghana. So we try where possible to employ local labor and procure as many products as we can from Ghana.
The program is helping reduce poverty in Ghana in the sense that it helps small to medium scale businesses, creating employment.
The aim is that it would increase socio-economic development in these areas. We expect improvement in the standard of living of the people, water supply, education, health. We're going to educate our people better. With access to television, radio, even informal education would be better. And small scale enterprises come up. You don't see the rural-urban migration too much. It has an impact, a positive impact on women. They can now spread their time over the 24 hours more than the small daytime that they had. They were able to get their education from television, radio. They can communicate better. These days, mobile phone companies have moved to even mini banks and things like that. So all these little bits, things have helped on their own to improve the life of their people and reduce poverty.
When we want to prepare our food, we have to go and cut some trees to come and broil our food. But us now we can use that light to cook our food. We can see tele, we can see anything happen in the whole country. The teachers are even showing them how to learn how to write the computer. And I hope that, that those who come in will be enlightened more than us.
The horizon of the villages, they are no longer stuck to that kind of limited environment. They know a lot. All this is as a result of the magic of electricity.